Hey everybody, Ryan F. MTG here, and today we're talking about our final color, and that's black, of the Force Seekers. Now, we've got some new toys in each and every color, so I'm really excited for black. Especially because, one, the new hero is black, and that is Akuma. So how much is Ascend going to affect black when there's a whole hero, and the hero art, Raging Demon, is Ascend centric, right? It triggers your Ascend, kind of like how Nero triggered your growth units. So it seems like black can really play with that. Also, black has a kind of wide variety of decks in the metagame. You know, you have Nergigante Spike Launch, you have Wesker Ouroboros, you also have Revenge, and you have other things. But all those decks maybe can play with Ascend units as long as they're heavy hitters, or there's just brand new decks to brew around with Akuma. So why don't we see what black has to offer from. First up, we have a 3MP for 2/5. That's a pretty actually good stats, a 2/5 for 3MP, and it has death, gain 1 MP. So this is great fodder to sacrifice to your Ascend units. Also, this is very similar to Zombie, right? Kind of the OG Zombie that was 3 MP for what, a 3/2, and it has Revenge with the same text. So with Zombie in the format, I don't know if I like this card. I think more times than not, if I want fodder that also ramps me a little bit by 1 MP, I would rather play with the Zombie. Yes, this is better stats. A 2/5 in my opinion is better than a 3/2. However, Zombie comes back, so you can feed it away again to something, or just it becomes a heavier hitter. So overall, this is similar to Zombie, but I like Zombie more. Ashford is a 3MP for 1/7. That's a lot of health for a 3MP unit. Basically, very little attack. However, it has death, destroy a random enemy unit with MP cost 3 or less. So this is some more food for your Ascend stuff, which is great. And I kind of like this card because a 1/7 is going to stick on the board a little bit and, like, you know, soak up some ETB effects like BB Hood or whatnot, be able to maybe poke damage a little bit, and then you can actually make this into a removal spell once you're ascending onto this. Yes, 3 MP or less is very, very narrow, right? Because there's not really that many 1 or 2 MP units, so it's basically 3 MP units, and not all decks are playing those by any means. But if the metagame kind of switches where there's a lot of 3.5 Morgan, or even a lot of Ryu, which there always is kind of a lot of Morgan and Ryu, this card could be pretty good, because if you're using this to actually kill something and pump up your Ascend units, that seems really good to me. Gate is a card that I really like. It's 3MP for 2/7. Right there, that's some really good stats. 2/7 body just for 3 MP cost is really, really nice. When played, it sacrifices 2 life. That's definitely a downside. However, it can be an upside if you're playing this in like a Nergigante Spike Launch where you want to sacrifice life. And 2 life is not tons, but it really feeds to try to get to that 12 cap that Nergigante wants. And then having a body is so nice. Also, the Ascend, it gets +1/+2. So this could be turning into a 3/9 for 3 MP that you sacrifice 2 life. That's awesome. Base level, I think this is good enough for most Nergigante Spike Launch decks to want to play. But then if you get to Ascend it, it's even better. And that's what I love in cards. I know I've said that before. But if your worst case scenario without the Ascend, you know, just playing it for its vanilla cost is good, and then the Ascend just makes it more powerful, that's awesome. Because that means I'm okay playing this my first unit of the game, and then I'm even more happy if it's the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or later on in the game when I actually get to Ascend this. So overall, Gate is definitely a card that I'm going to be playing. Our first black legendary is Vile. It's 3MP for 0/3. Okay, tell me more, because right now this is not that great. It says, when played, it gets +1/+1 for each time a friendly black unit have had the Ascend status this battle. To note, it does have to be black units, so this cannot really fit into like a multicolor deck, but that's fine. +1/+1 is good, but this is definitely a mid to late game play. And my big question is, how many good Ascend units are there in this set that we actually want to play? Because you do, each time you Ascend, you are sacrificing a creature. Even if the creature was kind of like weak and already used and the HP was low, you're still sacrificing a body. So this needs to get quite a few Ascend triggers in my mind. Because we've seen a lot of units or actions in the previous colors that say something like, you have to ascend 3 or more times. If you've ascended 3 times, this becomes a 3/6. For 3 MP, that's actually not bad, but I kind of want a little bit more. So I think this card could be good, or it could be really busted, because if you've done it like 5 times, it becomes a 5/8 for 3 MP. That's really, really good. But I'm kind of a little hesitant right now, just because it's like, okay, how ascend-centric are we going to be? But also, if you play this in Akuma Raging Demon, right there, that's 1 free ascend each time you get to use your hero art. So overall, I think this card could fit, but it definitely needs to be ascend-centric for sure. The more I'm looking at these cards, the more ascend-centric that maybe a deck can be, because Vega is 4 MP for 1/7 with Flight. Okay, that's not great. Evasion is nice, Flight is nice, but it has Ascend of +2 attack. So that means if you get to Ascend this, it's a 3/7 with Flight just for 4 MP. That's actually really strong. That's a heavy hitter. Also, it's nice that it has 7 HP because it's kind of hard to kill, right? It'll trade off in the battle and be hitting your opponent in the air, besides if they have another flight unit, of course. So overall, like, Vega's pretty darn good, especially if you want to be like this low aggressive Ascend deck. I think this is pretty decent. It could. Seth is one of those cards that I was talking about that is, if you've ascended 3 or more times, you get a payoff. So basically, Seth is 4 MP for a 2/7, which, that's not that great by any means. However, if you've ascended 3 or more times, you destroy an enemy unit with MP cost 4 or less. That's pretty powerful, because we saw something when it died, it killed something 3 or less. 4 is a big jump, right? That difference between 3 and 4 is humongous, because most decks are playing 4 MP units, or, some are playing 3 MP units. So being able to kill 4 MP units or less is pretty good. Yes, it could be dead, because, if you're playing against a green ramp strategy, or, they just have like a 5, 6, 7, or like Morgan or something, this could kind of be dead maybe. Well, not if it's 3.5 Morgan. So it is a little situational. My big question kind of with Vile is how easy is it going to be getting to above 3 Ascend status 3 or more? If it's kind of easy and like, you're playing the Vegas and the Gates and all those cards, having Seth as maybe like a 1 or 2 of is pretty good, because 2 nodes, yes, this could be food for your Ascend. However, you need to make sure that your Ascend is 3 before you play this, because then you can Ascend away. So overall, a little hesitant on Seth, but it's a pretty good payoff for a Ascend-centric deck. Bandersnatch is a 4 MP for a 1/6. It says Death destroys the unit in front if it has 4 HP or less. Revenge gets +1/+2. I like Bandersnatch, especially in a Ascend deck, where, you play this, maybe it soaks up a little damage, and then you sacrifice it to your Vega or Gate or whatever, and if it's done a little damage, maybe it finishes off the unit in front of it, and then it comes back. It's more fodder for your later Ascend cards, kind of like what I was talking about, like maybe the MP Zombie playing that. I think Bandersnatch is very good, because then it just comes back, and that it's even a heavy hitter because it comes back as a 3/8, which it's like, that's actually really good because it will come back just for 2 MP. So I like Bandersnatch overall. Julie's an interesting one. It's 4 MP for a 2/7. Okay, not great. It has Ascend, which it means when it dies, return 1 unit with MP cost 3 or less from your graveyard to your EX pocket. That unit's MP cost gets -2. So most of the times you'll be getting a 3 MP unit to your EX pocket, and then that will be a 1 MP unit. That's awesome. Like, that's pretty cool. However, it's still just 3 or less. So you need to make sure that you're playing a lot of 3 MP units, because that's not tons in most decks. So this is maybe a situational card, but the effect is powerful, because also, like, if you played a 3 MP unit, use Julie to Ascend over it, that 3 MP unit dies, but then it can come back, right? Or later on, whatever unit has died, you can have it come back, because this is a death trigger, right? Not when played. So, like, I like Julie. I think there is some setup cost, but overall, 4 MP for a 2/7, like, those stats are pretty decent. Yes, it's not hitting that hard, but it has quite a lot of health, so it can kind of trade or do some damage on board. So overall, it is a very narrow Ascend death trigger. So you definitely want to be making sure you're playing enough 3 MP units where this Ascend death trigger is online most all the time. Nosferatu, this creature is a 4 MP for 3/5. It has Ascend, it gives -1 attack to all units except self. So all your units and all the enemy units. Overall, I don't really like this card. 4 MP for a 3/5 is, it's fine stats, it's not terrible, but it's nothing worth playing. And that just -1 is not a humongous effect when you have to think, oh, I have to sacrifice a creature for this effect. So overall, I'll kind of pass on Nosferatu. Birdie is a 5 MP for a 3/6 with Ascend plus 3 attack. So if you Ascend this, it's 5 MP for a 6/6, which that's pretty good stats for 5 MP. However, it's nothing flashy. And you'll notice how sometimes my 3 MP or 4 MP creatures, stats can kind of be a little bit more exciting to me. Where 5 MP, there's a lot more heavy hitter cards with powerful effects the higher cost the MP is. So overall, just having like a 5 MP vanilla 6/6, like, yes, that's a little bit higher on rate, but I wanted it to be like destroying a creature or coming back with revenge or something. So overall, like, Birdie's not terrible, but it's just strictly stats. It's a big creature, and overall, I'm a little off Birdie. Balrog is 5 MP for a 3/5 with victory +2/+1. That's a lot of stats, actually. Like, a 3/5 for 5 MP is not that great by any means, but if you get a victory, it becomes 5 attack and then 7 attack and more and more and more. I'm always a little hesitant about victory because usually the base level unit is pretty weak and it needs to get a victory to make it worthwhile. And sometimes that's hard because maybe your opponent just kills it with BB Hood or Obliteration or something, and then you're taking their removal. Or what if they just have a bigger creature that they slam down? And the payoff of, yes, those stats are getting better and better, but I don't think the payoff is really worth playing Balrog overall. Fane is kind of cool, 5 MP for a 2/6, and it says when you deal damage to an enemy unit, gives -1 attack to that unit, just effective for 1 turn, 1 attack. Okay, that's kind of cool, because it's almost making Fane be able to stay around a little bit longer. Also, it has Ascend, it gains combo. So, notably, if this is Ascended, it will deal 2 and then 2, so that enemy unit now gets -2 attack for the next attack, which is kind of cool. I'm a little unsure about Fane, though. Like, it's a powerful-ish effect, but it is only affecting that one unit, and this is still just a 2/6, so it still is pretty fragile, and especially being 5 MP, it's a somewhat fragile creature with a good Ascend / just mechanic going on for it, but it's not a powerhouse by any means. But like, I definitely think it's good, I definitely want to play with it, but I don't feel like it's going to be something that is going in a lot of my decks. Alexa Ashford is one that I'm really excited to play with. It's 5 MP for a 3/8. 5 MP, a little bit pricier compared to some of the good 3 and 4 MP stuff we've seen. But, not too bad. 5 MP is still low. 3/8 is pretty decent stats. It says when played, sacrifice 3 life, which definitely is a downside. However, kind of like, in Nergigante Spike Launch, it kind of feeds your really powerful hero power. It also has Ascend, destroy a random enemy unit with MP cost 5 or less. That is awesome. That's what I want to sacrifice a creature for. That effect is really, really good because it's 5 MP or less. We've seen 3 MP or less, which I'm like, that's a little narrow. 4 MP or less, which it's getting a little better. 5 MP or less, a lot of times this will be killing something if your opponent has something on the board. Yes, not all the time, right? This is not completely hard removal, no nonsense, kill anything, but 5 MP or less is pretty darn good. So overall, I'm very excited to play with this. I think this will fit right into a Nergigante Spike Launch Shell, and maybe even some other decks, because it's still a powerful enough effect where maybe it's worth sacrificing 3 life, even if you don't really want to be sacrificing life. M. Bison's another cool one, 6 MP for a 3/5 with combo. That's pretty good. 6 MP is a lot. 3/5 is not great stats, but combo is a very, very good ability. So this makes it hit harder. And it still has 5 health. So overall, that's decent. However, if you Ascend this, it gets +1/+3. So it turns into a 4/8 with combo. That is a big heavy hitter for sure. Also, it deals pierce damage to the enemy unit in front equal to the number of times friendly black units have had the ascend status this battle. That's really good, because if you've only ascended once, it's still at least going to do 1 damage, but if you've ascended 5 times, it will do 5 damage. That's awesome, because a lot of times it's 3 or more, where this is like, if it's only 1 or 2, that's not that big, but hey, at least you're getting 1 or 2, and this is what I like about this card, is that also, even if it wasn't for the pierce damage thing, giving +1/+3 to this unit while it has combo, I think is pretty good in and of itself. And that extra pierce damage of knowing how, or looking at how many times your other units have ascended this game is almost just gravy on top. Bison, I think, is very good, especially if you are playing just a ascend package. High Max is back again, but this time around, this machine is 6 MP for a 3/6 with flight and shield. Okay, that's kind of cool. One play, you sacrifice 5 life. Like I said before, sacrificing life sometimes is a good thing in some decks, but some decks you don't want to be sacrificing life. 5 life is actually kind of a lot. A lot of times it's 2 or 3. You know, there's a barrage of different life totals that you lose, but 5 is kind of up towards that high end. Overall, I'm a little low on High Max. 6 MP for a 3/6 with flight and shield, like, that's good, but usually 6 MP is not something that I really want to be filling. You know, I kind of want to be playing the M Bisons or something else as a finisher, where I feel like this is just another role player, not a finisher, and losing 5 life seems a little hefty for this. Not like, oh no, you shouldn't be losing 5 life, because it's a good card, it has a lot of good effects, but I just don't really see what home this is going to fit in. Speaking about units that are coming back, Devil, this monster's back. This time around, it's 7 MP for a 5/8. That's a pretty big body, but 7 MP is a lot for sure. And it says, when an enemy unit is placed on the field, move this unit to the front of the enemy unit. So this is strictly like defense, you know, it's going left, it's going right, it's going in the middle, it's just running around doing defense, which is pretty good because this monster is humongous, so it's doing work. I like this effect, and it's a different effect that we haven't really seen on a Teppen card before, more or less. However, I'm just not that impressed with it, because a 5/8 body is pretty good. Like, this could definitely eat a creature, trade with a creature, eat a couple creatures, but for 7 MP, it seems a little high. Also, your opponent knows what this does. So if you ambush, let's just say, a little creature, you get to eat it, the next creature they play could be a big payoff creature with shield or something that then eats your Devil. So as long as your opponent has some big creatures, the Devil can definitely go down. Yes, it can do work, but even when it's doing work, I don't think it's really worth that downside of your opponent playing around it. Okay, Akuma got his legendary card. There's a lot to unpack for this card. Base level, Akuma is a legendary, of course. It's 8 MP for a 6/3. That's not great, right? Like, 8 MP for a 6/3, 8 MP is a lot. 6/3 body is not good, especially that 3 HP. Woof, that's rough. However, it says, when played, destroy the unit in front. Right there, that's awesome, because let's say your opponent has a Buki, well, you play this in front, it just kills a Buki, and there's no hoops to jump through. This is not 3 MP or less, or some 5 MP or less. This is just anything, right? That is awesome. Yes, it has to be the unit in front. However, that's a lot less narrow than most of the cards we've talked about already this set. It also has Ascend. The Ascend is, it turns into Demon God Oni. Oni is 10 MP, but you're not really costing it for 10 MP, with 8/11. That's a big body. That's a ton of attack and ton of health. And it says, victory, it destroys a random enemy unit with an MP cost 4 or less. That is a little bit more narrow for sure, right? 4 MP or less is narrow because that's really just usually hitting 4 MP or 3 MP, but that's still really good, especially when it's 8/11. Like, it can get maybe 1 or 2 victories off or force your opponent to use a hard removal. It does have a downside though. It says, after a friendly unit is placed on the field, destroy that unit, which is a downside. We've kind of seen that downside before. However, that's kind of fine, because if you spent 8 MP for Akuma, you used your whole resource bank on playing this legendary unit, where then you just hopefully let Oni do its work, net MP, by the time your opponent has dealt with it, well then you can play some more units. Overall, I think Akuma is really good, especially maybe playing this with Akuma as your hero and having Raging Demon. So maybe you could just play this and then ascend it using your Raging Demon. This seems like a very powerful payoff, and this is what I want my high MP units or just action cards in general to do. I want them to be heavy hitters, and Akuma's definitely a heavy hitter for sure. Okay, time for the actions. First up is Master of the Hado. It's 1 MP for an action. It says gives a friendly unit with the Ascend status Death gains +3 MP. So this is a ramp spell for black, which we don't see tons, and black can definitely use ramp because we have so many units that we want to play, or like ramp into an earlier Akuma would be awesome. However, there are some hoops to jump through. One, it's a death trigger. It's not when played or something, so you have to wait around. It's kind of like putting money in the bank and waiting for the interest. Also, it has to be a unit with the Ascend status. That makes this narrower. Obviously, this is going to go into a Ascend style deck. Maybe playing Akuma, maybe not playing Akuma as your hero. Overall, I think this card and the power is good. I'm just not really sure if it warrants a place, right? Because usually black decks want a ton of units and then kill spells. This is neither. However, having a ramp spell could help to play more units or heavier kill spells, so I could see a home. I'm just haven't seen it quite yet for this. Second win is 1 MP, and it says destroy a friendly unit with the Ascend status, then place it on the field again in the previously occupied board slot. That unit will not have the Ascend status. So if it was pumped with the Ascend status, it will be, more vanilla, or it does not trigger the Ascend status again, which kind of seems not great. However, think about Raging Demon. This could definitely fit into a Raging Demon style deck because you can use this. Yes, you get the vanilla unit back, but then you can use your hero art of Raging Demon to then re-trigger, re-pump it up, or re-kill your enemy unit. I do think this is narrow for sure. And yes, it's good because you can do this in response of your opponent trying to kill your unit, which is great. Or after it's traded a little bit, it's getting weak, you can do this to kind of reset it, but you're resetting it into a weaker unit. But I think if you're playing a lot of good units with very good Ascend triggers that are not necessarily pumping it up like Vega or something, but more killing your enemy units, I think that's where this second win will fit. So kind of like our previous action, I haven't seen a home for it, but in a Akuma style deck, I could see playing with some second wind. Pleasure in Destruction is 1 MP, and it says give a friendly unit +1/+1 for each time friendly units have ascended in this game. And it also says destroy this unit after 1 attack. I don't really like this card because there's the hoop to jump through of you want to make sure that you're playing enough Ascend units to be able for that +1/+1 to be meaningful. Because if this is just +1/+1, that's not that good. But then it doesn't take a while for this to actually be good, because even if it's 2, 3, 4, that's really, really good. However, it's destroy this unit after 1 attack. We've kind of seen these pump spells before that it is destroy after 1 attack, and I feel like there's better, right? There's better ways to do this that give more attack. However, if you are playing a Ascend-centric deck, and if that +1/+1 could be +5 or +6, throw this on a Vega or something, that could be a one-hit combo kill. So if black is really in search of combo, finishers, and I don't mean combo as the mechanic, but combo as, playing a unit, pumping it up, that type, a combo deck, then Pleasure and Destruction could be worth it, but right now I'm not really thinking it's worth it. Starvation Impulse is 2 MP, you sacrifice 3 life to give a friendly unit +1/+1. However, if you've ascended at least once this turn, this game, give additional +2/+2. So that means if you've ascended once, it's +3/+3 for 2 MP, which is definitely a higher rate. This is the type of card that I like, because it's 2 MP for +1/+1 at its floor, which is not good, right? But it's playable, you can still cast it. However, if you've ascended once, which is not that hard because you're going to be playing quite a few Ascend units, it gets +3/+3, which that is then a notch above rate. So you're kind of a little bit below or a little bit above. Either way, it's fine, it's passable. Sacrificing 3 life is a downside. However, in Nergigante Spike Launch, it is a pseudo upside for sure. I don't really love this card though. I think there's a couple too many hoops to jump through, even though they're not that hard. But we have other pump spells that are sacrificing life, or just other ways to sacrifice life that I don't feel like we need this. Not that it's intrinsically a terrible card, but I just don't see myself really playing this card. Fate of the Unworthy is a cool one. It's 3 MP, and it says destroy enemy unit with an MP cost of 4 or less with the Ascend status. Deal 1 damage to the enemy unit. That's kind of cool, but very narrow, because base level 4 MP or less is kind of narrow like I talked about, but it is nice because it can kill 4 or 3 MP units. However, it or less without the Ascend status. So that means if it does have the Ascend status, nope, you cannot kill it. However, there's more units in Teppen without the Ascend status than with the Ascend status. So therefore, that makes it less narrow, which I like, because if it was reversed, I think this would be way too narrow. But as is, yes, 4 MP or less is a little narrow, but still pretty darn good. And it cannot kill an Ascend unit, and that's kind of okay. And this is just for 3 MP. 3 MP is very cheap for this type of effect. I kind of like this. Also, it deals 1 damage to the enemy hero. That kind of seems a little random to me, because it's just like 1 damage is not a lot, but like, it's not trivial. It could win you the game sometimes, right? Just the final poke of damage. Overall, I like this. I think 3 MP seems like a pretty good cost for this action, and it kind of makes it pretty darn good. Okay, Ant Queens is 4 MP, and it says destroy an enemy unit whose HP is equal or less than the number of units in your graveyard. That's kind of a cool effect. 4 MP is not super high, but it's more than some other 2 MP or 3 MP, removal. However, like those removals, this is situational, right? This is not an early gameplay. This is definitely mid to late gameplay, because you need to make sure you have quite a few units in your graveyard. And the big downside, in my opinion, is that this is HP, not MP. A lot of units can have crazy high HP, or you can target a unit, especially against like a Resonate style deck or a green deck, they can pump the HP in response to maybe negate this, which seems really problematic. And also in a game of Teppen, some games you just don't get tons of units in your graveyard. So overall, I kind of want to like this more, but I think there's just, black has a ton of removal, and I think there's just better removal that you can play then. Betrayal is 6 MP, and it says destroy an enemy unit with MP cost 6 or less. It also says send all copies of that unit card in your opponent's deck to their graveyard. So if you kill a 6 MP or less creature, like let's just say a Ibuki, well then it sends the other 2 Ibukis, because most people who are playing Ibuki are playing 3 of, into the opponent's graveyard, and that is really problematic for your opponent, because Ibuki is the big finisher of a lot of decks. So this is pretty good effect. However, of note, it's just your opponent's deck. So if they had a Ibuki in their hand or EX pocket, you don't get to take that and throw it into the graveyard. So not all the time are you going to get all the copies of that unit away and into the graveyard, but it's still a pretty good effect. And also 6 MP to kill anything 6 or less is not that terrible of a rate, because Obliteration is 6 MP, and that does kill everything. However, there's not tons of higher than 6 MP units. There is some for sure, and maybe with Betrayal being in the format, more people will be playing Ko or some more big green monsters. So, there definitely is some downside of that 6 MP or less. It's not super narrow. Most games you will find something to Betrayal for sure, but if it's a Ko and Betrayal's in your hand, that feels real bad. So if the metagame kind of takes Betrayal into account, I definitely think this card gets worse. But the effect is very powerful. It's a very even without the send the all unit copy clause, it's still a pretty decent one. Yes, it's strictly worse Obliteration at that point, but it's a pretty good removal spell with some hindrance for sure, but the effect is pretty nice. So overall, I definitely think a card that I want to play with, I think is good. But definitely if the metagame starts switching where it's like targeting Betrayal, definitely start taking it out of your deck. Cruel Game is the legendary action for black. It is 7 MP, which is very hefty. That's a lot, right? That's more than 6 MP, that's more than 5, that's how numbers work. However, the effect is very powerful. It says randomly destroy units on the field until both you and your opponent have the same number of units. So it's situational, however, it could literally a one-sided wrath. You could have 0 units on the field, your opponent could have 3, you play this, your opponent has to sacrifice them all. If you have 1 unit and they have 3 units, well then they sacrifice 2, you keep your 1, they have 1. Overall, I think this is very good. Yes, this is definitely something that you want to try to leave in your hand to maybe optimize or play around with, but that effect is so powerful that it's maybe worth making a couple mediocre trades or maybe taking a little damage to bait them into playing. This card is awesome. Definitely I'm going to be playing it in most of my black decks, at least for now. Maybe it's less good than I give it credit for, but it seems very powerful and it can just be a one-sided wrath, which is usually really, really nice for sure. That's it for black. Overall, black got some fun cards, and especially with Akuma having Raging Demon and being able to use its hero power to trigger Ascend is really nice because I feel like you can play with a lot more of these Ascend black units and play around with them, see how they feel, because you have a hero power that wants you to play with Ascend, and there's some really good payoffs. Even without thinking of Ascend, there's just some really strong units and actions that will fit into other decks. So overall, like, black seems like it got a lot of new toys, which is nice because it also got a new hero. Overall, really pumped to start brewing with some black decks and cards, but also just excited, reading these, talking about them, evaluating them has me excited to brew with different ones, look at like, okay, what cards are going to be good in, the Ryu deck, the Morgan deck, also maybe just what new decks in general will come to light with these new cards, because there's quite a few new powerful cards. But yeah, we've talked about all the colors. Now it will be time for brewing soon. But thank you for all for watching. I'll see you next time.